So guys, I'm just letting you know that I'm recording the meeting because one of the students had a time clash and he requested that, we have a recording available. Okay. So what we were saying was that that structure is very important, and that structure can only come through having rows and columns and boxes where we can put in stuff. And the example is like, a warehouse. You can just throw stuff in a warehouse or a storage, right? Your stuff, your stuff. But then when you want something, you want to retrieve something, it becomes a nightmare if it's not organized in some place. Now imagine that this is a very big warehouse in which you've got like boxes you've got lines drawn A, B, C, D, right? And then you also have numbers. So you can trace what is placed where, right? In a warehouse. Same concept applies here in a spreadsheet. You can arrange information in a much more streamlined manner through a spreadsheet. And I think that's pretty obvious here, but let's define it. A spreadsheet is an interactive software application because we're doing it on the computer, right? We're not doing it on a piece of paper, although we can, but it becomes very hard when you've got lots of data. And what it does here is the keywords, structure, so structuring it, but we can do a lot more than just putting it there. We can actually even transform the data. Why would you want to transform the data? Well, maybe you want to do some calculations. You want to find out how many, let's say again, the warehouse example, how many boxes of cereals do we have in our warehouse? So if you can count that, imagine this warehouse is like really, really big. That will be great. But for that, you need to, after structuring the data, you need to transform the data and maybe even analyze the data. And this is done through the rows and columns in which the data is stored. And that's something we just talked about. So everybody's clear about this definition. It's an interactive software application for structuring, transforming, analyzing, and storing. Now, we're using the general word spreadsheet, and we're not calling it MS Excel or Google spreadsheet. Why? Why do you think we're just calling it a spreadsheet and not, why can't we just call it MS Excel? Anyone? Chris? Chris Mediate?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So why do you think we're calling it a spreadsheet as a general go-to term instead of calling it MS Excel or Google spreadsheet?
I would say because it is kind of displaying the data in a way that we can analyze it more easily, like more spread out, more interactively overall. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that's part of the answer. Rachel, Mark?
I guess I would just say like it's called a spreadsheet instead of like a specific, I don't know, like um tool, I guess. Just because like what Chris said, like there's so much you can do with on a spreadsheet, like graphs and everything and analyzing the data, like it's just so vast that calling it one specific brand's like technology like wouldn't work.
Very good. So if we can also call it, let's say the spreadsheet is the concept of having some sort of software application that could be Google Spreadsheet or Microsoft Excel. And the third one that we'll be doing in our data visualization week is Tableau. So Tableau is also sort of a very high-end form of a more detailed version of a spreadsheet that does so much more than what an Excel file can do. So very good. Interactive software application, please remember that. Structuring, transforming, analyzing data stored in rows and columns. Very good. Okay, so opening tabular spreadsheet data comes in various forms, especially when you're talking about Excel, the most common one. So what is the difference between an XLS and an XLSX file format? Do you guys know this file format? You might have seen it. Any guesses? What is the difference?
I've never seen it before, but just my human brain is immediately reading extra large, and small. So I have no idea if that has anything to do with
Good
it.
try, Ali. Good try. That's no problem whatsoever. So if when you're dealing with data, you'll see that a lot. So for example, XLS is an older version of Excel file name, and then XLSX is the newest version of the file name. Sometimes you have an old file version, XLS, and it might ask you automatically, do you want to save it in the latest XLSX format? And that's what it is. So basically, I'm just introducing that just so that when you see it, you know what it is. The other format that you might come across is .doc versus .docx. You might have seen that for Microsoft Word, right? You might also have seen another file format for PowerPoint, which is .ppt, right? And .pptx, that is the newest version of PowerPoint. So 3 favorite software tools that I love and I have on my desktop all the time are PowerPoint, .pptx file format, .xlsx file format, because I'll deal with a lot of data, and Excel is a very good friend of mine, and .docx is the Microsoft Word. That's what I dream in as well. So because I'm typing a lot, writing papers. So a lot of data you might is already in tabular form, which means when we say tabular, it means it's in rows and columns. So whenever you think of tabular, Microsoft Excel, or the word spreadsheet, you know we're talking about rows and columns. Another file format that you might see here, and nothing to be worried about, it's the comma separated value file, or for short, .csv, comma CS separated V from the value. So .csv file format is another popular file format for this thing. The reason I'm showing you all this is so that you know whenever you come across this, you know how this file can work. Here's another one. It's called tab delimited file. And we'll look at tab delimited kind of data. So those are tabs. So what's a tab? On a keyboard, let's say this is my keyboard. I hope you can see it without, oh my God. So there's a tab button here. You might see it. It's an Apple. So you see that on a, I think on a Windows machine as well. Tab, that's exactly what it is. When you press the tab, it gives a space. So a tab delimited text file is a file containing tabs that separate information. So a computer doesn't understand. The computer might, let's say, read this tab delimited file, colon, the columns of a data are stored as a text file with a tab character between values. What makes those words readable? The space, right? The space between the words makes that sentence readable. If there's no space, it's going to be like one word, right? So that's how the concept of a tab comes in, okay? All right, just a small thing here. Data transformation using spreadsheets. We can clean the data using the spreadsheets. How do we clean the data? Well, number one is we can search and replace. So you can Command F, Command C, you can note it down. If you've got an Apple machine, Command. If you've got a Windows machine, Control, CTRL. So if you have Command F, that's gonna find, right? Command C, copy. Command X, cut. Command P, paste. These 4 simple shortcuts are really handy. You can note them down. Command or Control C, copy. Command or Control V, paste. Command or Control P, sorry, paste. Command or Control C, copy. Command or Control X, cut. Right? So these are like 4 different shortcuts that are really handy and we can use them. Even if we do not know the shortcuts, it's perfectly fine because we can actually do it with a mouse pointer on the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to look at in a few minutes. So raw data to process data, every data that comes in is considered or treated as raw. It's treated as raw because you don't know what to do with it. It doesn't even look nice. So it might be like lots of values in different places. You have to clean it up, tidy it up, make it look nice, and then, in other words, what you're saying is get it in order. So you need, if you want to process it, you need to clean it. Excel really rules the basic data analysis world. Although there have been lots of new innovative big data software designed to analyze, manipulate, and visualize data, but Excel is awesome. It is so powerful that many people don't realize that Excel is such a wonderful tool at their disposal that we don't even use. Like 90% of the functionalities of Excel are not used. We just use very simple stuff for it. It can do lots of good things. So 30 years, it's been 30 years since Excel was launched, almost. Excel remains the go-to product for people looking to make sense of data, okay? So if you can spend some time to look at tutorials online besides this class for Excel, it's going to be very beneficial. You can bet on that. So MS Excel is a Microsoft product. It can also solve mathematical formulas, and I can show you that a little bit today. There are lots of inbuilt functions that can be utilized, and you don't have to like remember things by heart. You can just, play around with it, and it gets quite easy. Are there any disadvantages? Well, everything has a positive and a negative. Yes, there are some disadvantages of Excel that we're going to look at first, and then I'll look at the advantages. The functionality is limited for advanced statistics, especially programming, although it can do wonderful things, but there's a point where it cannot handle a lot more data. So if I think it's 1 million or something, if it reaches that, then the program starts crashing. The advantages now. So while we've looked at this, it's highly accessible, easily implemented, very easy to look at. It's quite intuitive. And there's a whole big community of people who have used Excel, and they've created tutorials for Excel. Like when I get stuck in data analysis with Excel, all I do is just go to YouTube and search my issue, and I usually find it. I usually find like somebody must have explained it. All right, so it's really useful. Now let's look at your data, the sample data that you've got. This is our first class exercise for today. Let's pull up the data. It's going to look like this. I've already just pasted a screenshot of it. Let's open the data. There are 3 worksheets in it. So I'm going to pull up my, what do you call it? The Excel file. And we're going to look at it together, right? So let me close the Excel file for a minute, and I'm going to show you the the PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you my Excel file. The sample data for Excel class exercise that you've downloaded, I'm going to pull it up. You should pull it up as well, and then we're going to look at it together. Okay. All right. So I'm opening the file now. As soon as it appears, I'm going to pull it up here on my screen. Where did it go? There it is. I found it. All right, hold on. So here it is. Let's first of all look at what, if you haven't opened Excel before, let's see what it looks like. So number 1 is the sample data. Okay, so I've placed 3 worksheets at the bottom here. Can you see it or not? Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So sample data, number 1, 2, car inventory data set, number 3, pivot table sample data set. So in the second part of our lecture today, we're going to look at a pivot table. But first we start with the basic Excel. This is what you saw on the slides a few minutes ago. You can extend the column size and, really like look at what's in here. You can extend that, play around with it. And here you can have as many worksheets as you like. I can add another one here. See, sheet 1 by default, I can drag it and move it around, and I can call it like a class exercise. And then I can save it, all right? And so on. So sample data is here. Now, the sample data, if you this is like very limited. It's just 10 feet, 10 rows of data here. These are the headers for the data, okay? So it's telling us the order date, region, representative, item, units, unit cost, and the total, all right? And this is a little bit obvious that these are units and numbers, and these are, the cost is in dollar amounts, okay? The date is here. So you notice something here, when I click on the date, this kind of lights up. So on the home function, it might vary a little bit, but pretty much should be the same. I can change the number format, okay? I don't need to, but I can. So for example, let's say if I select this column, I can change it to currency because it is currency, isn't it? So we can make it dollar. So lots of things you can do from here. The two things or tabs that are really interesting for us are the data tab, this one, and the view tab. Where is view? Here. So in the view tab, you can, for example, freeze the top pane. Let's say you've got lots of data and you might want to make sure that you still see the headers. You can freeze top row and do some other wonderful things. You can even search for like stuff that you're not clear about, and Excel can also help you understand things. What else can we do? So the first thing we're going to do here is go to data, and let's say, why don't we do a very simple function which is called sort. Now we've got dates here, January 6th, 2019, January 23rd, February 9th. So it seems like it's in order. But let's say we want to look at the highest cost on top and the lowest cost on the bottom. So we do a simple thing. First thing we want to do is freeze the top. We go to home, we go to view and freeze the top row. What's that going to do is when we move it around, the row header is going to be sticking there. It's not going to move. So that's a good thing to do. Now we go to data and we sort. So we select this and we sort it, A to Z or Z to A. Okay, let's try A to Z. We always expand the selection, click sort. So A is a smaller number, Z is the larger number. So we've got the smallest unit cost. So this becomes our first research question in our data. What's the smallest unit cost for the product that we have in our data set? So we use the sort function. This is called the sort function. And we sort it by ascending order or descending order. That's another way to call it. Or we sort it by the smallest to the largest. $1.99 and the largest is $19.99. However, that could be very different from the total revenue or cost or whatever it is. Let's see. So we select this, and then again, we sort it from largest to smallest, expand the selection. And the largest number in dollar amounts is $9.99.50. The smallest is 63. So this is what the sort function can do for us. Can we do a visualization of this data? Yes, we can try that. So if you, for example, see go to insert, and we can add a visualization here. But first, it might be a good idea to look at, so Excel makes it really easy for us now. We have all these things here. See the chart forms here, or we can just click on recommended charts, right? So let's see what we can come up with. Just let's select the first one. So we can't, what is it telling us? Blue line is the units, orange line is the unit cost, and the gray line is the total, but it's not really telling us something. So we can delete it, select it and delete it. How about we see in terms of region, which regions have gave us the highest total. So I click on Control or Command, select this column, and then select the total column. So I'm not selecting everything, I just select two. And I go to Insert again. And now I go to Recommended Chart. Because I've selected the two fields, it works best with two fields. It's a two-dimensional chart. That makes sense, right? So we should have two columns there. So I click on that, and I can see that In this case, it's telling me central, central, east, central, but there's a lot more. There's more than one central. And we're seeing, but the first central is giving us about $1,000 of, let's say, revenue. And the second bar here is giving us 539 and so on. But you might have noticed here, although it has created a nice looking bar chart, it's not very intuitive or not very accurate because you've got, we would like to combine all the centrals and maybe combine all the east and west and, you know, all the regions. So let's delete that. We'll learn how to do that in a minute, but we can do another thing. Let's say, how about we look at the order date and how much we earned within that. Okay, so let's do order date and total. So I go again to insert and I click on recommended chart again. So let me select exactly the numbers. And I click on the recommended chart, and then we can do all these different kind of charts. Pie chart is never the best way to look at data. I'll talk about that later when we talk about the visualization, but let's click on the line chart. So this is a simple line chart. I can drag it and make it bigger. It's showing me by date, when was our, let's say, if we call it revenue, when was the revenue highest? It was highest on the 20th, around this time. Between January 6th, it started rising, and it was at its peak around 22nd or 23rd here. But after that, our revenue was never as high as this one. Well, that's interesting to look at. But when you look at numbers, it will be hard to tell, but you know, visualizations can help us. Okay, so this was the first simple exercise. Can you guys do the same? Can you make a chart? Check it out. And then we can move forward. If you can just make a chart, let me know, and then we can move forward. If not, just let me know. And maybe I can have your screen shared or whatever. All right, Sam, you got it?
Yeah.
All right, what about others? Yeah, take your time. You got like 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. Let's, I want you to get comfortable with Excel. Sydney? Abby? How are you guys doing? Ellie?
Sorry, I'm muted, but I got mine.
Okay, very
I'm
good.
muted as well, but same.
Casey?
I got mine.
Perfect. Katie?
I got mine too.
All right. William?
Yep, I've got it.
Rachel?
Yeah, I got mine.
Perfect. Michael? Smalley?
I got it.
Perfect. Colin? Colin?
I got it. Yeah, I
All right.
got it.
Amy?
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect. Great. Anybody else?
I got it.
Perfect.
Got it.
Perfect. So can we move forward? Like move ahead? All right. So I'm going to bring up the slides now because I'm building this up to the pivot tables exercise. All right. So let's look at the slides again. Where did they go? Hold on. You guys can see the slides again? Can you?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what we did. So the exercise was looking at data and its structure and structuring data. Now let's talk about pivot tables, and this will bring us to our second exercise, and that's it for today. Nothing much. Pivot tables is, you notice, remember we generated a chart and we had so many central, those bars, right? They were not combined. So that's a very rudimentary, what we just did was a very rudimentary basic way of looking at data, all right? We can do so much more with it. And that so much more becomes possible with something called pivot tables. But before I begin, what does pivot mean?
Like the word pivot, not just like as a technical term?
No, yeah, just the word pivot.
Pivot, I think, means like turning into a certain way.
Very good. So pivot is like, I'm standing on my feet, right? And I can sometimes pivot to something else, right? I'm looking at this way and I can, turn my whole body the other way just by turning on my feet, right? Or I can use my finger and I can pivot something like this, So turning is what we're talking about here. But what are we turning here? Pivot tables in this case. Now, when we talk about pivoting, so always go to the root of the word and think about what this is, and that helps you understand what's going to happen here. So when we're talking about pivoting the table, we actually are talking about turning the table in such a way that it becomes so much more meaningful. And we'll see how. Okay, just give me a minute. So Excel, one of the Excel's most powerful features is pivot tables. Okay. You can create pivot tables in Excel, and that would help you turn the data. And actually what's happening here is slicing and dicing to view it from a different perspective. Now that's very meaningful here, different perspective. What does pivot do? So when we turn, let's say I'm looking at north here, let's say, and if I pivot myself towards east, okay, I might see a different perspective to things. Same thing with data. I'm looking at data in 2D, right? Like that. And if I turn it like somehow like the other way, I might be able to see different perspective, just like in a chart. A 2D chart is only as good as like what it can show us. But if we have a 3D or even a more than 3D chart, we can look at it from different angles, and that might give us a different perspective. And that's actually what we're doing with data here. So you can extract the significance from a large detailed data set by doing pivot tables, because it sort of compresses it and gives us a different perspective to things. And it also, the keyword here is summarize. It summarizes the data in the spreadsheet without doing much. All you do is just click on it and it does the summarization. So using pivot tables, we can reorganize, count, sort, total, average, also all those things can be done with the pivot. How is this changing on its own? All of those things on its own. So let's watch a brief tutorial. This guy is a wonderful guy. Yeah, on YouTube, and he makes very nice tutorials. So instead of you watching me all the time, I brought him, so that becomes more interesting. So let me know if you hear it or not hear it. So I'm going to play this video. And what you're going to do, the data set for practicing this on your end while you watch it, I'm going to be posting the slides, and the link is there. One of the worksheets in the sample data sets that I provided you, number 2, is using this guy's data set. So it becomes very easy. All right, so let me play. When you hear it, just show me a thumbs up.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin. Today I'm going to show you how you can create pivot tables in Microsoft Excel to do some pretty amazing analysis. And as full disclosure, before we jump into this, I work at Microsoft. All right, well, what are we waiting for? Let's jump into it. Here I am on my desktop. I'm going to open up Microsoft Excel. The version that I'm using, this is the latest version of Excel, but if you have Excel 2019, 2016, 2013, you name the version, you should be able to follow along with this tutorial. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to come up with a fun example. And so today I'm going to pretend that I'm a used car dealer. So I have a spreadsheet called car inventory. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And one thing I want to do is first kind of help orient you to the data that I have in the spreadsheet. So what I have here is this is my inventory of cars that I have. As you can see, I have 24 vehicles in my lot. And it's a mix of different makes. I have Hondas, I have Toyotas, Nissans, Chevrolets, all sorts of, and then I have many different models, Accords, Camrys, Altimas, a variety of colors of vehicles. I think black and silver tend to be the most popular cars. So hopefully I have a bunch of those in my inventory. Then I have the different mileage amounts. Some of the cars have a little bit higher mileage. Some of them have a little bit lower mileage. So kind of a nice little mix here. And then I have various price points. Now for the price, this is what I believe I can charge for the vehicle. So I've listed that. I've been working in this car business for a while, so I have a pretty good sense for what these cars will sell for. And then lastly, this is what I paid for the vehicle. And so you can see what my margin is here. I got $1,000 on the car if I could get the $4,000 because I only paid $3,000 for it. Hey, everyone's got to make a living, so I need to get a little bit of a margin there. So this is my data here. And now what I want to do is I want to do a whole bunch of analysis. I want to figure out, hey, what is my total profit margin across all of these cars? How many red cars do I have, or how many Hondas do I have? I have all these different questions about my data, and I want to analyze it. Now, what I could do is I could write a whole bunch of formulas. Like if I want to, figure out what my margin on this vehicle is, I can enter a quick formula. But that takes a lot of time. Pivot tables simplify analysis and really make analysis a lot faster. In my job at Microsoft, I use pivot tables all the time, and it helps me to analyze data much quicker. And so today I want to show you how I do that. So what we're going to do is I have the data here. We're going to go up to the top bar and click on Insert, and you'll notice this option called Pivot Table. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. But before I do that, I want to show one other option. There's also an option called Recommended Pivot Tables. So if I click on Recommended Pivot Tables, this is Excel recommending different pivot tables based on my data. So here they have a bunch of things. Like I could see the sum of the mileage by the different makes. And here I could go through and I could see some samples that they've set up. So kind of a neat thing that could help you really simplify pivot table creation. But today I want to show you how you can create your own pivot table from scratch. And so what I'll do now is let's click on this pivot table button. What it's doing is by default, it selects this table of data that I have. It's already pre-selected it. I could also change the selection if I want to, but Excel's done a good job of picking it. And then I could choose, do I want a new worksheet or do I want to put it on an existing worksheet? I'm just going to create a new worksheet with this data. So I don't want to change anything here. All of this looks good. Typically when I get this, I just click on OK right away. All right, well, here I am. This is the main pivot table view. It looks a little intimidating at first. You have a bunch of different controls on the right-hand side. You have this other thing that says to build a report. So let's walk through how to do it. So you have a few different options here. You have filters. This is if you want to filter your data by any one of these fields. You have your rows, which is rows going down a sheet. And then you have your columns, which are going across the sheet. And then you have the values associated with that. Well, why don't we do a real example and then you can see how these work. I want to know how many cars do I have by make and model, and then my color, just to get a sense of what my inventory is. So the first thing I could do is I could click on these different items, and then I could drag it into these different boxes down below. So I'm going to take make, and I'm going to drop it in the rows column. So here, now I get a quick view of all the makes that I have on my lot. So I have Chevrolet, Dodge, Ford, Honda, Nissan, and Toyota. Now what I could do is I could also click on the model, and I could drop it down there. And now I could see the make and each of the models under that make. And what's kind of nice is I could expand and collapse these different sections. I could also collapse all the fields, or I could expand all of the fields using these buttons up here. I'm going to drag the color over to the columns. And so now here you see I have a table of the makes, the models, and the colors. And now I want to get a count. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take makes and I'm going to pull that into values. And so now what this has done is it's set it to count. And now I can see a count by vehicle. So here, once again, I'm going to collapse it. So here you can see for Chevrolet, I have 1 green, 1 silver, and 2 white vehicles for a total of 4 vehicles. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and expand this again. And now I can see that, by the different models, what colors I have. So kind of a very quick way to visualize my data without having to go through the spreadsheet and filter or enter different formulas to get this data. With the pivot table, I could just do that automatically. Okay, let's say that I want to know what my profit margin is on my different vehicles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the model out. I'm going to move the make out. I'm going to move the color out. And I want to know my margin by make. And so what profit margin is, it's the price minus the cost. So I'm going to pull the price in. Here you see, this is basically what I expect to get if I were to sell all of these models. So once again, I'm going to pull the, let's pull the make in again. So here you can see that I have my 4 Chevrolets, and I believe that I could collect 14,500. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull in the cost. And so here you can see, I expect to be able to pull in about 14,500, and to buy all these vehicles, I had to pay 13,000. So what I could do now is if I want to figure out the margin, I'm going to click on this thing that says fields, items, and sets, and I'll insert a calculated field. All a calculated field is, it's basically doing a formula on different columns in the pivot table. So I'm going to click on calculated field, and then I'm going to call this my profit margin. And for the formula, what I want to do is I want to do the price. So I'm going to insert the price, and then we're going to subtract the cost. And I'm going to insert the cost, and I'm going to add this. What you'll see is it just added this as a field to my pivot table. So I'm going to click on OK, and now it's automatically added this to my table. So now you can see that I have 4 Chevrolets. I believe I could collect this. This is my cost, and then here's my margin. What's nice too is I can see, well, what make has the biggest margin? What, I could look through this and figure out which one's the largest, or I can right click here, go to sort, and I could go from largest to smallest. So here I can see of my 5 Honda vehicles, I expect to make about $3,468. So that's my biggest margin that I have. So once again, pivot tables make analysis super easy. Now, let's say that I wanted to know the average cost of my vehicles. So let me, I'm going to pull some of these values out. I'm going to get rid of the make. I'm going to get rid of the profit margin. So let's say for these different cars like Chevrolet, Dodge, what was the average price that I paid when I bought these vehicles? So here you'll see that this is currently set to the sum of the cost. What I could do is if I click on value field settings, I have all these different options. So instead of just looking at the sum of all that I paid for these vehicles, what I could do instead is I could say the average. So I'm going to click on OK. And now this changes it to the average. Now, one thing I'm going to do just to make it easier to read is let's add $signs in. So here what this is saying is for my Chevrolets, I paid an average of $3,250 for each vehicle. And for my Hondas, I paid $2,500, and you can see on average how much I paid per vehicle. So once again, what I do there is I go to value field settings, and I could change it, sum, count, many different options in this list here. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I have my 24 cars in my inventory. I want to know what percentage I have of each color. So I want to know what percentage of my cars are red versus black versus silver. So what I'm going to do is let's go back, and I'm going to drop color in the row field. So we're going to drop that in, and then I'm going to pull in let's pull in color here. And I'm going to get rid of the $sign. So what you can see is I have 6 black cars. I have 6 silver cars. I'm going to sort this from largest to smallest again. So here you can see I have 6 silver, 6 black, and then 3 white, 3 blue, 3 red, and 3 green. But let's say I want to know the percent of silver cars that I have. What I can do here is I'll right click on this and I'll do show values as, and I have all these different options in this list. What I want to know is I want to know this silver. So in this column, this 6, what percentage is that of the total? So once again, I'm going to go back to show values as, and I'm going to say percent of column total. And so now what I can see is my silver cars make up 25% of my inventory. My black cars make up 25% of my inventory. And so on and so forth. So there, I could show the values as percentages. They have lots of different options that you could do, so you can play around with that. So what I want to do now is when you look at your data, seeing it in a table format, that's one way to read the data. But sometimes it's nicer to be able to see a graphical visualization of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on Analyze again. And then there's an option that is Pivot Chart. I'm going to go ahead and insert a pivot chart. I'm going to go with columns. I can choose many different chart types, but I'm going to go with columns. And here what you can see is this is a column chart of my car inventory. So here I can see 6 silver, 6 black, and then I can see the rest of it. So just a visual way of my table. And the really interesting thing is, here what I could do is I could drop in different values into my pivot table. And then I could see, the chart will just automatically update based on what fields I drop into my pivot table. So it's a very nice and easy way to pull together kind of a visual view of your data as well with pivot tables. One other thing that I want to call out is you have this option that says Defer Layout Update on the bottom. What does that mean? Well, with Defer Layout Update, as I pull items in and out, you'll see that it doesn't update my table and it doesn't update the chart until I click on Update. So here, if I pull the color out and then click Update, now it'll update only after I click that button. Why would you ever use that? Well, especially when you're working with very large data sets. So let's say you're working with 1 million or 2 million rows of data. Every time you drag and drop something into a pivot table, it's going to take your computer time to process because it's doing a lot of calculations based on how you set up your pivot table. And so this way you can make sure that you have your setup good before you make that update. So it just helps speed up the process of editing. Now I've created this pivot table, and what I also want to show now is not only is this available in Excel that I have on my desktop, but also in Excel Online. And one of the cool things is Excel Online is actually free to use. Here I am in my Excel Online, or I'm in my office.com. So I've gone to office.com, I've logged in. By the way, it's free to log in. If you're a paid user or a free user, you have access to this. And so here I see my recent document list, and my most recent spreadsheet is car inventory. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. And now what it's doing is it's opening it in Excel Online. And what's nice is I have this file stored in OneDrive. So I edit it on my desktop and automatically saves to OneDrive. And now all my changes that I just made are available in Excel Online. So I'm going to click on sheet 1 because that's where the pivot table is. But here you can see my car inventory. I have that exact same data available here online. I'm going to click into sheet 1. And then here you'll see I have my pivot table and I have the chart that I inserted on desktop Outlook. And here in the online version, what I could do is I could go to insert. I could just as easily insert a pivot table. And then here I could just as easily manipulate my data just like I could in Excel on the desktop. So whether you want to use it on the web, whether you want to use it on the desktop, pivot tables are very accessible and you could use them in either place. That was a quick overview of pivot tables. They're not nearly as intimidating as you think they are. And really the best way to start playing around with the pivot table is just to start dragging and dropping things into columns, into rows, into values, and just to play around with it. It's a very powerful way to visualize your data and to understand your data. In fact, in Excel, I very infrequently now enter formulas. I very infrequently enter functions because with pivot tables, I could already do most of my analysis there. So there's less of a need to do all these other formulas. And in terms of analyzing complex data or even simple data, pivot tables do a great job at doing that. And my job at Microsoft, it's helped me tremendously in terms of analyzing data and understanding data and making business decisions based on your data. Anyway, I hope this tutorial is helpful using pivot tables. Hopefully this helps you creating your own pivot tables. If you enjoyed this content, please give. Hi everyone, my name is Kevin.
All right, okay. So I hope you found that useful, okay? He was a little fast, that's perfectly okay. You got the video link. Watch it at your own pace. Let's do some more practice. Any questions before we move forward? Does this look overwhelming or something you can handle?
Definitely with some practice, I'll feel comfortable.
That's right, Riley?
Yeah, same here.
But you can now see the benefits of what this can do, right? This is very powerful. It's not that hard. It's just very simple. You don't even have to write a code, but it can be very useful in any kind of work that you do. So I'm going to pull up the data file again. And now let's see what we can do with it when we use pivot tables. All right. So let's start with sample data again. The car inventory data set that guy was using from Microsoft is here. And then I also provided you a third sample data set that can be used to answer some questions. So let's do a simple exercise. So remember, we were saying central is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we were not able to visualize this properly because we haven't done any sort of analysis here. Let's go ahead and create a pivot table. So where do we start? Let's walk through it, baby steps, with this simple data set. We first go to insert, okay? Let's do that together. Can you guys go to insert as well? Now that we're going to look at pivot tables. So on the left-hand side on the top, you're going to see pivot table and recommended pivot tables. We can try any one of them. Recommended pivot tables makes it very easy. So it hasn't selected anything yet, but if I do this, select them, and then click on recommended pivot tables, it automatically did it. So in there, it was showing options. In this case, it just made the pivot table very fast. So let's, I hope we can undo this a little bit and go back to where we were. Oh, so it has created a new sheet. Let's go back to our first sample sheet, and we're going to do it manually. So let's go to insert and click on pivot tables. We've already selected the whole data range, and it says it's either you can create it in a new worksheet or the existing worksheet. Let's create it in a new worksheet so that we don't ruin this one. Click on OK. As you might recall, the first thing you see here is the pivot table fields on the right-hand side, and it's blank. It's blank, right? So nothing to worry about. When you start checking the boxes here, they're going to start showing up. So let's start with the region here. I'm going to pull up the region to row. When you click on it, it already gets pulled up, but you can just drag it as well. So the region and the total. How about we get the total as values here? So now this is making more sense. Instead of us having like several central regions, we now know that we only have 3 regions: central, east, and west. And we've got the sum total for those regions as well. And I think it might be now a good idea to visualize this. So we can just go to pivot chart, right? We can go to pivot chart. It just creates that pivot chart easily, just the click of a button, right? So central region has got the highest revenue, if I'm going to treat it as a revenue, east, and then west has got the lowest revenue here. So this is one. So let's put it here somewhere, okay? The next thing we can do is look at units and drag it here. Let's look at units by region. Okay, so the chart is also updating, you might notice here. So the regions and the units come under the charts. What else can we look at? How about we look at the region and do away with units and we get the representative. So which representative in which region had the highest number of, let's say, sales? So Andrews in central region is here. It's showing us at the top, but this is not the topmost. So you right click on this. And remember the sort function that I showed you in view, right? In data, this sort function. You can also use this sort function by right clicking. You right click on that and you click on sort largest to smallest. So this could also be very easy to look at. So Kivel in the central region has got the highest sales, then Jardine and Gill and Andrews. In East, we only have 1 rep. In West, we have Sorvino 167 and Thompson 63, right? This solves our problem. So instead of us doing that simple data that we did before, now we've got the pivot table that really helps us visualize this information. I'm going to delete the chart. Can you guys do this at your end? This simple activity? Because the ATD2 is based on this, and it's a team effort. So you're welcome to get in your teams now, because I'm going to show you what the ATD2 assignment looks like. So I'm going to go to your, here, and I'm going to go to the ATD. Let's see what the exercise here is. ATD is the pivot tables. I've got the pivot table guidelines here, the data file, and and a link here. So I'm going to click on the pivot tables. Excuse me. Sorry. The guidelines here, thank you. ATD2 here. So this is what you're going to do. I've already posted this makeup 2007 file. It's also in that, but I've posted it separately as well. Give sales data for a small makeup company. Each row lists a salesperson, product sold, location of the sale, unit sold, and revenue generated. Use this file, I think we just saw that file, to perform the following exercises. Number 1. So if you're a team of 3 or 4, why don't you split up the questions amongst yourselves and try to solve it. Summarize the total revenue and units sold by each person and each product. Question 2. Summarize the percentage of each person's sales that comes from each location. Create a pivot chart to summarize this information. Number 3, summarize each girl's sales by location. Very simple, isn't it? So to answer the above questions, please make sure that you're including screenshots of the pivot table results in the document. So you're going to make a Microsoft Word document. On top, you're going to write your names, each member of the team, and you're going to start answering those questions. So let's say page number 1, you answer question number 1, 2, and then 3 in different pages. And when you solve it, take a screenshot of it and put it in the Word document. And don't just put the screenshot, explain what was happening. Explain like, we did this and this is what we got, and this is, summarizing this data and answering that question. Simple. So this is going to be your ATD2, which is due when? Let me open your syllabus. ATD2.
Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay, all right. You can, this is all what we had for today. Oh no, there's a little bit more left. We can look at it. But any questions for ATD2 or the pivot tables? Any questions? You're welcome to contact me later as well if you get stuck. But I would advise, since you are here now and there's some time left in class, you can start your work on this, okay? And you're welcome to contact me anytime, okay, if you have any questions. Who's that? Okay. All right, so let's go back to our slides again. Where did they go? All right, so I'm going to tell you some, before I conclude, I want to talk about some other stuff as well that you should be aware of. You know about programming languages, right? So when you're talking about a very advanced data scientist, they also work in languages, programming languages such as R and Python. This course doesn't require you to do any of that, but just knowing what they are is beneficial. So R and Python are really popular. This is what the logo for R looks like, and this is what the logo for Python looks like, okay? I think those are snakes, yellow and blue ones. So R and Python are really popular. They're open source programming languages. If anybody gets very excited in this course and wants to learn these, there are lots of wonderful tutorials available. It can change your life. Really, if you learn R or Python, the starting salary is at 150,000 K a year. What are the, but there's a learning curve involved. Like they say, no pain, no gain. If you can learn this with the basics that I'm teaching in this course, life can be very different. Advantages and disadvantages of R versus Python. So they are both competing, right? They're both really big. I can code in Python. I cannot code in R, but I just know the workings of it. But in Python, I've written codes that help me get data and clean it. So what are the advantages of R? R, the logo here, the R, right? Made for data-oriented projects in general. R can handle big data, very large data sets that Excel may not be able to handle. It's got large number of ready-made packages, so already pre-written codes that you can adapt for your projects. It can professionally visualize data, but again, it's all about coding. It is developed by data scientists, so it's very much used and important for business analytics or even social media analytics, marketing analytics, any sorts of analytics where the word analytics comes in, R is there. There's a large community of people who already have discussion forums, they have videos, they have mailing lists, they have documentation, blogs. You cannot get lost. If you, for example, learn R, you would have lots of support. So you post your question there and they're like, oh, you might want to fix your code like this. So there's a lot of self-learning that can take place with R. And I'm not going to tell you to go after, if you want to learn this, expensive courses or anything. There are lots of free resources already available. It's a well-established programming tool. And the word here is open source. So lots of people around the world are working on it. There's a nice interface for R that makes your life easy instead of looking at, that DOS command like long time ago, you can have something called R Studio, which can help you work with R. Disadvantages, it's a little bit tricky in terms of learning it. So there is a steeper learning curve. Less efficient for general competitions, sometimes not because of the tool itself, but because of the packages that have been written inefficiently. So that's R. Now the second one is called Python. Python has certain advantages. It has a very growing community of computer science software engineers. That's why in the communication world, we're not learning this. But I come from like lots of diverse backgrounds, so that's something I've done. There are more opportunities to take advantage of artificial intelligence. We have a week on artificial intelligence, so we'll talk about it there. There is a great deal of flexibility. It can be integrated with website and mobile apps or a production database. It's ready for programming tasks besides analyzing data, so you can do a lot more with Python, more powerful, I guess. Disadvantages, less efficient for statistical computations, because it was not built for that originally. It was built for like making other kinds of things. It is not as appealing. It's not beautiful. Like when you start coding in it, it gives you a headache. Like it gave me lots of headaches. It's the data visualization is not as appealing as you have in R, and there are fewer packages, but still more, it's quite powerful. I mean, I've benefited from it. But if you ask me, I'll go for R if I want to learn this, because R has got like more beautiful visualization. And I think beauty is everything. So, you know, that matters. So this is what we had for today. Let's, you're welcome to look at the sample data file that I have here. There's the car inventory data set that that guy was talking about in the video. And then there's this pivot table, the beauty. I think that's the one for the makeup 2007. But I've already provided that data set, I believe. Let's see if it's there. ATD, you go to analytics tool discovery on your left-hand side, ATD2 on Blackboard, then click on ATD2 folder. Within that folder, you've got the data file here. You can start working on it now if you like. Alrighty, questions, concerns? What do you guys feel? Happy, overwhelmed, what? Just be honest, tell me. I can't even see you except one person.
I feel like I'm gonna have to watch the video again, look at a tutorial again. Not super confident with it yet, but I think I'll get there.
I am very confident you will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling the same way. Just have to like look at everything again and practice. I guess practice will be key in all of this. So just like making sure that I'm like retaining the information and like being able to apply it.
All right. You know, I feel so happy, even though I'm not the one doing this assignment. You know why I feel happy? This is going to expand your skill set. It's going to be something that you take along in the job market, right on your CV, that you know how to do with Excel, pivot tables, some sort of data analysis. It's going to enrich your skill set. So that makes me really happy. So I know this, there's some degree of learning involved, obviously, but it is really powerful. Like I'm saying, I cannot emphasize enough how simple it is, but the benefits are really amazing. Like I think many people don't realize that Excel is that amazing. So this is what we had for today. Get in your teams, pick one question, and you can start working on it and creating that ATD2. And let's quickly revisit the syllabus, okay? So that we know where we stand and what we're doing next. So here, I've got the syllabus here. If you want, I can share the screen. Let me do that. Share screen. Okay. So here's the syllabus. Oh my, okay. So ATD2 is worth 50 points again. There's one more ATD after this. So we've already done one that I need to grade and get back to you. So we are in week 4, remember? So today's February 11th, Thursday. We are looking at dealing with data in Excel, and we just completed this tutorial 2. Next week, which is week 5, we are going to, there's no lecture in it, so we're not meeting like this, but there is a sentiment analysis overview, which is available on the Blackboard already. This is where February 16th is where your ATD2 is due at the end of the day, but don't wait till the end of the day. If you can finish it before that, that'll be awesome. You'll be free over the weekend. You should celebrate the weekend, okay? February 18th, you have your text sentiment readings. There are already readings available. So the only thing that is important on February 18th, Thursday, is your quiz 1. That's going to be available from morning, like 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. If you wanted 6 a.m., I can provide that until the end of the day. But once you start the quiz, you finish the quiz. The quiz is based on everything till week 5, which is not the sentiment portion, or actually there is the sentiment portion. So everything till week 5, week 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So everything about text and the basics that we did, all the readings are covered. And I hope you do really well. But like I said, from my side, I'd love for you to get good grades as well. But understanding this is more important. Don't worry about the grades. Understand what you're doing, okay? So that you can take it forward. So your quiz 1 is on February 18th. We're not meeting face-to-face in week 5, but let me tell you, so today's Thursday. By Friday night, if you need to meet me, sort of like an office hour, just send me an email and we can meet. And if you want me to walk you through anything that you're not understanding in what we've studied till now, let me know and we can meet, okay? Questions? Concerns? Besides the snow? Everything okay?
Did you say if the quiz is timed?
Yes, it is timed. I haven't created it yet, but I have the questions in my mind. It's going to be, let's say, I don't know how many questions, but it's going to be just true and false and MCQs. No short answer questions. Only true and false and MCQs. And I think I usually give about a minute for each question. So that should do it. About a minute. Anything else? So when we meet in week 6 on February 23rd, we have a wonderful tutorial on Netlytic and Voyant. So that's going to be interesting. Okay, I know you'll enjoy it. So that's when we start doing a lot more interesting stuff with text analytics. Clear? All right, can I go? Okay. All right, you guys take care. Always a pleasure hearing you and seeing some of you. Take care, have a wonderful weekend, and I wish you can complete this. I'll create a Dropbox where you can submit it, the ATD2 as a team. Only one person from your team needs to submit it, ATD2, the team leader. Okay? Chris, do you have any?
Thank you.
Nope. That's all good. That all makes sense.
You take care. Have a wonderful weekend and a day.
Thank you. You
Thank you
too.
so much.
Thank you. You too.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.